Starts here with classic Motown, second time around.
Stone love. Yeah, stone love. Our love for each other, it will bring you fine.
Right now, this tour that we're doing now with Ian Levine is something that I think is going to be one to be remembered, because it's really, it's putting together some fabulous people that really can make good music, and that's what Motown was all about. When all is said and done, it was about the music, the chart busters, and they had a lot of them.
Don't you hear the wind blowing?
I think, number one, Ian is the perfect person to do this. I feel that maybe another Berry Gordy, being black, could not do what Ian's doing now, because there's always been this one mogul, and he has been, but he has stepped aside to let the tradition of Motown go on however it is to go on. And I think that when you're going to rebuild or carry something forward in this business, because there are certain prejudices sometimes you do have to go through, that it will be a much easier job for an Ian Levine to do, not only away from the United States, but also a man who is not a black man.
Come give me your softness. Now there's you, there is no weakness, lying safe within your arms. I'm born again. I was half, not whole, in step with none.
The one question I was asked mostly in America when we did about like 60 or 70 different TV interviews in the States during a very short period, and they all kept asking the same question: why did it take an Englishman to put the Motown sound and the Motown artists, the original ones, back together again? And there isn't really no answer to that. I'm wide-eyed in amazement to the fact that here we are after all these years, no one else has done it. It seems to me that such a fabulous reunion cannot fail in the public side. Everybody wants it to happen. I think the only thing in America is there's resistance at American major record label level to the old Motown sound and those kind of artists. They'd much rather promote a hip-hop record by some Barbie doll lookalike like Paula Abdul rather than go for the real soulful quality with some black women who may be slightly larger than a 26-inch waist.
There's nothing you can say could take me away from my God. There's nothing you can do, 'cause I'm stuck like glue to my God. I'm sticking to my God like a stem to a lady like her.
I think My Guy is such a classic song because it's boy meets girl or girl meets boy, and they love each other, and you know, I mean, what can be better? I mean, the perfect story, man, woman, love, and the woman loves her husband, and that's why it was classic.
Tell a lie to my God. I give my God my word of honor to be faithful. And I'm gonna, you best be believing I want you to see me, my God.
So far, we've recorded over 250 songs, as I said, on 89 different former Motown artists. Of those songs, about 30 to 40% at least are remakes of classic Motown songs, in many cases on the original act, like Heaven Must Have Sent You with the Elgins, like Heatwave with Martha and the Vandellas, My Guy with Mary Wells, Stop Her on Sight with Evan Starr. I haven't just tried to do a straight cover version, I've tried to keep the flavour and essence of the original, but maybe change the backing vocals, particularly by using the original Motown backing girls, the Andantes, but doing slightly new arrangements, trying to add strings and horns in some cases where there weren't any in the first place, Certainly not trying to use the concept of a drum machine, because the technology that we have here with the Fairlight and everything enables us to recreate in the system, in with a computer system, using the way real musicians would play, but with a much tighter feel. But we don't use any synthesized sounds on these Motown records at all. We actually went to Detroit, we actually recorded some drum sounds in Detroit and took back the sound of the bass drum and the snare and put them into the computer, so we'd have real Detroit drums on this stuff. I mean, no one else would go to that trouble. I did not want electronic drums. The sound on, on all the records is a sampled sound off a Detroit drum kit.
There's a basic Motown foundation in what Ian Levine is doing, but Motown was Motown, Ian is Ian. He's putting and generating his ideas and what he feels and hears into this. And I think he's doing a good job. He's taken the Motown artists, he's brought out some things in them or helped them to release some of those things and ideas that they have in them. And that's, to me, that's what's most important. I want to be able to let that come out. And that's what's fulfilling to me, more than sitting up hoping about, well, what are we going to do tomorrow? How big of a star am I going to be? And furthermore, I'm going to tell you this. I never wanted to be a star. I just want to sing.
Maybe that we can turn back the hands of time, yeah.
I was sitting at home really doing nothing, and a man called me and says, I'm doing old Motown things, just to put it mildly. He went into detail and he told me all, and he gave me a description of what he wanted to do and how he wanted to do it, and asked me if I was interested. Not point blank that way, but, and I said, if what you're saying to me is the truth, then I don't have any problem with what you're saying to me. I don't see where there's no tie-me-downs, there's no big obligations to hold you forever where you can't do anything else with anyone else and that kind of stuff. And so far it's been that way.
If you should see me and I'm smiling, don't think my smile is for real.
As far as what's in Ian, if I didn't see his face, I wouldn't know whether he was black or white or what color he is. His music is his music. And it doesn't have a white sound, it doesn't have a black sound, it doesn't have an Orient, it has an all-around sound. And I believe even still for Motown, they may have had a large audience of black entertainers, but their sound was as very crossed over, is very white, is very pop, is very classical, is very rhythm and blues as they wanted to make it. They had the talent to do just that with anybody they wanted out there.
You hear me laughing. I only laugh to fool the crowd.
The Motown sound is one of the hardest things to define. In fact, Motown themselves, on their 25th anniversary program, had a whole joke sketch running for about 4 minutes where they all tried to define what Motown was, from Berry Gordy through Smokey Robinson to the Temptations, and they all had contradicted it. One said it was the top end, one said it was the bottom end. So how can you define it? The essence of Motown, though, to try and put it in a nutshell, is a joyous black form of music which has roots in gospel and jazz, but has a very up-tempo feel that's able to lift your emotions. The overall beat is an on-the-fours beat, unlike a lot of today's contemporary funk music. It has the kind of chord changes like sort of major seventh and minor seventh, which actually make you feel happy and wistful at the same time. The kind of music that if you're feeling down or depressed, you can listen to, and it would actually lift your spirits up and change your whole mood. Certain instruments are predominant on Motown, always the piano and the tambourine, with great sort of moving, chugging, constant bass lines that you couldn't keep your feet still to. and the sophisticated strings and horns. Happy, joyous, uplifting, emotional music.
Basically, I thought it was the backbeat, you know, and the rhythm. And it had that syncopation, you know, just driving sound, you know, that everybody liked, you know. And then the bass player, you know, it sort of, you know, had that deep sound, which was really the beginning of the bass, playing that type of music, you know. And that was success of Motown. And plus, they had a lot of talented people working for them, too, you know. They really did. The Supremes, the Temptations, Smokey Robinson, they go on and on and on. Martha and the Vandellas, the Elgins, okay. Other than that, I can't say. It's just, I don't know what it was, man. It was just magic.
Well, the thing was the honesty. The teenage honesty of the 50s and 60s on the part of the white and black artists was phenomenal. We would just take those little rah-rah chords of C to A minor to F to G and write 1,000 different songs that would touch the hearts of America. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom.
Marv's importance to Motown, of course, will always be the fact that he was their first ever hit artist. It's amazing he was so durable. The fact that he started off in 1958 with Come to Me, which was a hit, but his follow-up hit, You Got What It Takes, was even bigger, so it's selling several million. And he had a string of hits which Motown released out to United Artists. When that deal expired, they still believed in him as an artist, so brought him back into the Motown fold. And then, unfortunately, shortly after that was the time that Motown moved to Los Angeles, and Marv got left behind in Detroit, you know, unjustly, as it were.
I believe what was special musically about Motown was Mr. Gordy's ability to bring everyone under the label of family. Sometimes family have problems amongst each other. You know, I'm sure in your own family everything is not lovely every day, but he was able to have enough of that type of foundation so that when the musicians were in the studio playing, it wasn't necessary to have charts written. They could look at each other and feel the energy between them to make the tracks themselves just very special. And then because all of the artists were there to make that record the best, I mean, it's like I sang on some things with the Temptations and the Supremes. I've sang on things for Stevie, Smokey, a lot of, you know, background and things for a lot of artists. And so did the Supremes. They sang background for different groups, and the Marvelettes and the Vandellas, you know, all of them. So it was a thing of let's make the company the best it can be. And it was more of that family thought of making the whole thing work rather than just individuals.
Come give me your kindness, comfort me through all this madness. Lying safe with you, I'm born again.
Sarita is a wonderful artist who, as everyone knows, was married to Stevie Wonder and was produced by him on most of her hits through the mid-60s, the late 60s, mid-70s. She started as Rita Wright. She was actually up for the replacement of the Supremes to Diana Ross once Diana left, but I think Mary Wilson was against it because she felt Sarita was too close in vocal texture to Diana. Although it's very easy to tell them apart, they do have that same sort of wonderful, breathy young girl quality that they both share in common. Sarita, of course, had her biggest hit in 1979 with a song called With You I'm Born Again with Billy Preston, which I think was #1 here for about 10 weeks.
In your arms, I know I'll find this. Darling, don't you know with you I'm born again. Lying safe with you I'm born again.
was involved as a DJ in the early 70s in the Northern Soul scene. I was a very young kid at 17 or 18. I became rather well known, doing interviews on Radio 1 and stuff like that. The first record I ever wrote and produced went to number 30 on the pop charts here. So I was in, at the age of 21 years old, in with a bang, you know, straight away, a hit, and doing the music that I loved. So over the years I moved into other areas, more into contemporary American disco of the 70s and everything. Became very well known as a dance music producer. But the love of Motown always remained with me.
The preacher joined their hand, and then all the people, they began to stand when I shouted, it should have been me, instead of her walking with you. You know it should have been me, getting ready to marry you. You made a promise that we never part, and then you turn around and you broke my heart. You know it should have been me.
In late '86, the opportunity arose to rekindle an acquaintance with Kim Weston, who I'd met when I was 15 years old with her husband, Mickey Stevenson. And I'd met him on a plane, and he introduced me to Kim Weston, who at the age of 15, I spent a whole day in Los Angeles with her shopping and looking around the recording studio. And we became friends when I was just a kid. So here we are, that was in 1969, and here we were in late '86, so, you know, like 17 years later. And she remembered exactly who I was, she remembered all the details, and she was thrilled to record with me.
Speak now or forever hold your peace. It should have been me. You know that it should have been me.
When you hear that Motown was a family, a lot of times people think that they're talking about the Gordy family, but actually the artists worked together, the producers, the musicians, we all worked together. Many of the things were created on the spot, you know. So the sound was a combination of jazz musicians working with gospel singers and blues singers. So it was unique within itself.
Motown, I believe, and Berry Gordy assembled the best array of talent the world has ever seen. No other label has boasted the likes of Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Martha Reeves, Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, the Levi Stubbs, you know, Marv Johnson, Kim Weston, the classic voices. Everyone has a unique voice. It's hard to analyze why some stayed with the label and why some left, because everybody's story is different, and so you can't tar them all with the same brush. But there is a situation that as the company grew bigger and bigger, Berry Gordy wanted to concentrate on his real money spinners like Diana Ross. In fact, it was for Diana Ross and to get into movies that he moved the whole company to Los Angeles in 1971-72 and left everybody behind in Detroit. Other artists, like Mary Wells, left at an early age and left people very bitter. But you find a situation now where over half the artists that have left Motown are very bitter towards the company because of the way they were treated.
Well, it might have been the type of strategy that was supposed to have been used on the artist, that no one leaves Motown and make it, regardless of what kind of talent they have or whatever, you know. And this is to a certain point of view, it's like brainwash, to keep a person under bondage. And that's a terrible way to be.
Oh, after I had known you for what seems like a long, long time, I wanted.
The thing that kept me driving was that I heard that it was a lot of other things that were involved with it. People were getting paid not to play my records. My career was totally being destroyed at the age of 21 by money and power of certain people that were in power at the time. So it didn't bother me as much as if it had happened naturally, which it didn't. So it didn't bother me. And even now, I can go and perform without a record and draw thousands of people, and even they'll come out and bring their children and their grandchildren. So it lets me know that I'm still there and still loved with music.
So I let my heart
surrender to you. Yes, I did.
Yes, I have very strong positive and negative feelings about Motown. Well, I mean, seriously, there are the good things, because without the opportunity that Motown provided, I wouldn't be here now. Okay, some of my negative feelings are, for instance, like Dancing in the Street was written in my house, but it was given to Martha. So there are many things that I appreciate about Motown, and then there are some things that, of course, bothered me.
They had a vision of having great talent, and there were so many of them that were great at the same time. It was hard to pay attention to all of them at the same time. And even though I thought that they should have, I think that they probably didn't have enough, personnel for that. And so some people got to be, they felt like they were neglected. And probably some of those people you named felt that way and left feeling that way, so.
I grew up in Motown, during the Motown days in Detroit. And as you speak of the negative and positive, I experienced both sides of that.